I'm here with Pia Nilsson and Lynn Marriott with Vision 54, two legendary coaches, Hall of Fame coaches. You guys are considered some of the best at some of those, like pioneers and the best in the business at some of those air quotes non-technical skills. Like you guys are like you're leading the sort of the cutting edge of that. And it sort of surprises me, but doesn't surprise me when you say like this year, what are the things you guys did to become better communicators or better on that side of it? It's like you're constantly, so you're the pioneers of it, yet you're still pushing the edges of how you can get better at that sort of universe, of that skill set, whatever you want to call it, that bucket, right?
We call it so many things. But the non-technical skills is easy to say, and everybody understands it. That they are,
we used to call them the essential plane skills,
human skills,
the human skills, and they are all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what are some of the things that you learned this year in that bucket? Like if I had to think, cause now I'm going to go home and do my homework, right? What are like some books or what are some courses?
No, I mean one thing that I've definitely become much more aware of, that the state I am in, the state of my body, if it's like relaxed or tight or high adrenaline, low adrenaline, and the state of my mind, if it's like whatever, focused or scattered, and my emotional state, if I'm like anxious or calm or whatever, that the importance of that as I even walk in and start my pre-shot routine is hugely important. So I've played around with it just for my own game. And for example, so I've just, not even hitting balls before playing, but only focusing on, okay, I feel like tight today, and I change my state of my body or my mind, and I get where I want to be. And then I start making some swings without the ball in the target, but I'm only focusing on the body, mind, emotional state I want to be in before the shot, during the swing, and after. And then I've gone out and played just with that, and it's been super cool. So it's still in exploring stage,
sure.
But I think it's something we undervalue a lot.
Yeah.
So we want the technique the players improve on to show up more often.
Yeah.
In more days.
Yeah.
And then we need to start looking at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it influences the technique so enormously much.
Yeah.
So been just exploring it more, but since COVID started to play more myself, and I like to be guinea pig and just start to understand how it works.
Well, and to that, so when Pia first did this, I'm like, what are you doing? And I mean, because she's like, I'm just doing this because she had listened to this person that's, very, very wise and has done a lot of research in human development and human performance.
It was about doing imagery and all that. I think it can be really, really good, but Jean Houston was her name, but I was just listening to a podcast with her and
Michael Murphy.
And then she said, well, but I mean, for it to be really good, you need to actually embody it. I mean, you need to do, like in sports, not just sit
not
and
just
imagine,
visualize, but you actually embody the whole
embody and do it physically, the whole thing. So I said, I'm going to start testing that.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really fun.
So after Pia did this for a while, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. So, because I was having challenges with my putting, and I said,
just like distance response.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know I'm not in the same state, over the ball and putting that I am with, let's say a full 7-iron or whatever. So I went, I'm going to do it. And it like 180 degrees, and I'm like, so of course, like the state we're in is going to affect your, it's integral to how you're going to swing the golf club and the whole thing. So, I mean, to that, I think this year we've talked a lot more about, that we need to value training your state. And, if you think back to a quantum physics principle, the observer affects the observed. So the state, and now I'm going to talk about coaching, the state I am in as a coach.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring it back to that.
It's going to affect the observed. The observer affects the observed.
Yeah.
So hello, we need to help coaches understand it's more than just giving the right information. Are you actually taking, control, or are you being in charge of your state.
That's I was going to bring it back to, because it's kind of what you're saying before, where it's like, working on yourself. So it's like, as a coach, the whole idea of taking care of your side of the street, it was like you do your own sort of personal development or whatever it is, and then your day-to-day state, you have like a little bit maybe more autonomy of that state, as opposed to like the inherent craziness of what the external can bring you, right?
Yes. Right.
And then does that state that you can bring into coaching, does that influence your ability to coach at some capacity, right?
Hugely.
And then it's like, it can go down the rabbit hole of like, how much do people pick up on just like the energy or the way another person's feeling inside their own body, and how that trickles down to the whole environment you create with the player and all those sorts of things. And then it's like, even take away the performance side of it, just like, how do we determine success? Is it just an outcome thing, or is it also like, do you create a certain outcome with style points, meaning you feel a certain way about it? Like, I know a lot of people who have been incredibly successful that aren't necessarily the happiest people in the world. And it's like, is that really success? So, that may be a little bit more of putting my own kind of judgment on things, but it's still...
Well, it's super important for us, because, our goal as coaches is to help the excellence in performance, but also the well-being. Otherwise, it's not worth anything.
In the evolution, of you as a human being. Like, as a coach, you're a human being too. So wouldn't it be really nice that you're successful and the players you coach do well, but also that you keep evolving, and there's a personal positive development that is a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, these are where these conversations get kind of wild, right? It's like, if you do have the autonomy of your state, then almost the external or the outcomes sort of like kind of melt away a little bit, and they just become something to like, the tractor beam that pulls you on that journey of growth. And
I mean, I think many times a lot of coaches have said, and you've seen this, they're so not, egocentric. They want to please, help, and that is admirable. But at some point, shouldn't you actually back out of that and go, I need to develop?
Yeah. I think there's an element of you take care of your side of the street, right? Yeah. And then you hopefully bring that into a way that has like a really kind of nice mutually beneficial relationship. But I see oftentimes when people kind of play that role of almost being too external with another person trying to please or whatever it is, it almost becomes this kind of covert contract type of thing, and they oftentimes can be resentment that happens, and they don't feel like they get treated exactly how they should have, and it's like, anyways, they can get kind of messy.
There's a current football coach that's doing extremely well in college, and but I observed in a couple interviews just recently, and I'm just telling you what I observed. I'm like, he's gonna have to learn to dissociate. He's so associated with his players, and it's so cool right now. But at some point, that team's not gonna play well, and how's he gonna do?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that.
Does he have the ability? It's just a trainable skill to dissociate.
Yeah.
Because since you're so much a tour coach, and we've been tour coaches a lot too, because how I am with the players when they come off having had great rounds or not so great rounds is one of the most important things. That they know in a way I don't change.
Yeah. Totally.
Because there's so many others around them, they change so much depending on the score or how they finish. But that they know that I'm still only curious about the learning and what's happening when it makes a big difference in that trust level.
Yeah.
But I need to manage my state.
Yeah.
Super much.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Because it was many years ago where people thought good technique or whatever. It's just like, you kind of do it or you don't. And now we've gone deep down to you can learn more about it, you can measure it, it's trainable, and it's probably flipped where now people are looking at this as not, you either kind of got that or you don't.
Yeah, that's kind
but
of.
it's no different, right? It's just it's kind of saying, hey, look, we can kind of break this open, see what the different parts
we do, and I think we need to realize that from your super expertise, more and more can be measured, more and more. But we can never get away from always going to have an inner component that we can't measure.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not super essential and important.
Right.
So it's being okay with that.
Yeah.
And still value it and pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make that outer stuff you're measuring even better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But when they dismiss it because I can't measure it, if someone
Couldn't
is,
measure angle attack 50 years ago.
No.
It's still happening.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were there ways to kind of tease it out more or less and make progress with the understanding of, what makes the ball do what it does? Probably. And this is probably no different, right? I mean, 100 years from now, who knows exactly what
Yeah.
we're going to be able to
No,
measure
exactly.
in terms of something that we call state now might have some sort
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
quantifiable variables. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean we should completely say,
No.
we can't do anything about
No.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
because it's just too bad, because we're gonna not improve as quickly and efficient as coaches if we say I'm not gonna care about it till it's measurable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to say, so like being with Michael Murphy, we just had lunch with him. He's 94 years old.
Wow.
He was the father of the human potential movement in Esalen, and of course he wrote the book Golf in the Kingdom and all that. But he tells a story in one of his books about using a random generator. And so this is like this machine, but I don't even understand. You would probably understand what a random generator is. But what he did that night, he said he got all of his best friends together, and they maybe even had a drink or two, and they got themselves into an elevated state and tried to see if they could influence the random generator. And they did. But they couldn't measure how they did that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very sort of quantum mechanics, like you're saying,
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
We've had a great few days at Ping, going through their their brand ambassador sort of kind of research, up to date, couple of days, I guess.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've pulled away from the last few days that you think are going to really stick with you, and maybe whether it be integrating into your own coaching or just thinking about the game a little different?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is that the people that have been here, the most common denominator is that everybody's curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, super curious.
Yeah, I think that's
And then-
probably part of how they curate their sort of ambassador group
Yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
And for me to have the opportunity to just talk to each other, we've been asking you guys some questions, that is so incredibly cool. But I would say too, for me, since I do believe for the future of coaching, we need to integrate the technical skills and non-technical skills and technology. Obviously, I feel I get much more updated from the experts here and what's happening and understanding it much better.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I look at I do this each year, spend some time with them, and to me it's kind of like my own personal download and update of where the current state of sort of R&D is with golf clubs or swing research or whatever it is. So.
Yeah, for sure.
But I must say too, being in the industry a long time, the friendship and camaraderie among this whole group is incredible.
Yeah, it's
And
really
and
fun to
stuff.
have like-minded people in this space, and just kind of bounce ideas off each other. And,
Yeah.
I always feel somewhat kind of energized when it comes to going back out and teaching after a couple of days.
Yeah. I mean, I learned about rifle spin.
It seems like it's probably going to be nothing, but at least it's an interesting concept, right?
Absolutely.
And I think anything that it's like you have a thread, you pull on it, and maybe it doesn't take you exactly where you thought it would take you, but it takes you somewhere, and you learn
Yeah.
something from it. So,
Yeah. The other thing, I'm still astonished at Ping, how how thorough they are, and how precise they are, and the integrity. I mean, we've been around a lot for many years, and the integrity is at an extreme level, which is really cool.
it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, they hold such a high standard of what they do.
Yeah.
They're so intellectually honest with things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really remarkable how they put, for lack of a better way to put it, the truth of discovering aspects of the game and how to make clubs better at the priority above everything else.
Yeah.
And then whether it be marketing or whatever, is just to support that.
Yeah.
Going back to curiosity, I mean, you guys, one of the things I appreciate about both of y'all is how curious you all are. And you've been going around asking coaches different things the last few days.
We have.
What are some of the things that you've pulled out from the coaches, just going around asking people things that maybe you're like, oh, that was really cool or interesting?
Yeah. You start.
Well, because we are curious, and the thing is that there's so many of these great coaches that when we ask about what is something for the future that we could yet be a lot better at, there is a consensus that we need the balance of the development of technique and technology, but also do more, like how do you actually communicate that knowledge and bring it into the individual student. And there's like a common theme from everybody, even though they verbalize it differently.
Yeah.
And that's really cool, because we know for all of us to grow and we learn more, but we can't forget that we still have humans to communicate with, and all we know we need a lot of training with it every year to get stay good and become better. But that was a common theme for the whole group.
And you know, I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but you know, I heard an answer like, you know, we need to be able to communicate better, but I'm not sure you can teach that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes you can. You know, but it's just like saying, like, we couldn't understand the swing the way we understand the swing, like, you know, 30 years ago. But some people got curious about it and kept diving deep and learning, and now look at what we know. So we look at the non-technical skills of coaching as the same thing. They just need to actually, we need to make them explicit and trainable and actionable. But a lot of coaches, they just go, oh, we need to communicate better. Or another coach said, you know, when you're really good, you just change who you are, you know, based on who you're with. So I said, yeah, so you're kind of like a chameleon. And then he's like, yeah, but that just takes years and years to figure out. I'm like, I think we could cut that time down. You know, like, it's a trainable skill.
It's always so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. It's great to see you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
it. Thanks.